us start with a silent prayer. Okay, thank you. Security used to be an inconvenience sometimes, but now it is a necessity all the time. So it's very important to know about the risk factors of this wide web. We are happy that this webinar, conducted by Mar Basilios Institute of Technology and Science, Kottayam, coordinated by Assistant Professor Mr. Mithun Matthew, HOD of Computer Science and Engineering Department, and Mr. Mahesh KM, Assistant Professor, Computer Science and Engineering Department, will give you the information about this. First, I invite Mr. Mithun Matthew, HOD of Computer Science and Engineering Department, to welcome the gathering. He is a very enthusiastic man, known for his intellect. He has major hand in lifting the Computer Science and Engineering Department to a different level. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Respected panel lead, Dr. P. Sojan Lal, sir, Principal of MBITS Engineering College and Professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, MBITS. Keynote speaker of the day, Ms. Jyothi Ramaswamy from Tata Consultancy Services, and well-known speaker, Dr. DRJ Vaman, sir, Senior Executive Director of DRJ Telecom, USA. Various participants from India and abroad. Once again, a warm good evening to all of you. The team of MBITS is very proud to host an international webinar like this on cyber security in cyberspace. Today is the day 2 of our webinar series, and I am very happy to invite all of you to this program. First of all, I would like to welcome our panel lead, Dr. P. Sojan Lal, sir, who is the Principal of MBITS Engineering College and Professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, to this webinar. Welcome, sir. Now I invite keynote speaker of the day, Ms. Jyothi Ramaswamy from Tata Consultancy Services. Actually, this program is jointly organized with Tata Consultancy Services and DRJ Telecom, USA. So I am sure that she will be an eminent personality and resource person for today's topic, cyber security, governance, risk, and compliances. So with due respect, I welcome ma'am to this program. And now I welcome Dr. DRJ Vaman, sir, Senior Executive Director of DRJ Telecom, USA, to this webinar. Welcome, sir. And now I welcome all participants, teachers, scholars, students from India and abroad to this webinar. Welcome all of you, and thank you. Over to Bintu.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite our respected panel lead and head of our institute, Dr. P. Sojan Lal, sir, Principal and Professor in Computer Science and Engineering Department, to render the facilitation. With his knowledge, he has always inspired us. He has always been a constant support and the main pillar in the development of our institution. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mintu. It's been really a great pleasure for joining on this second day also. And I'm very happy that in MBITS Engineering College Computer Science has come forward to host this very much interesting topic on the cyber security, jointly with the Tata Consultancy Center as well as for DRJ Telecom, United States of America. Today we have two eminent speakers, Madam Jyothi Ramaswamy as well as Dr. D.R. Vaman sir is with us. And again, at the end of this program, I'm sure that a lot of live questions will be answered by both Jyothi Ramaswamy Madam as well as Dr. D.R. Vaman sir. And again, it's really an important topic as we are all dealing with computers, laptops, devices connecting with the world. So that's a risk which is involved, the compliance, governance. Again, Madam, who is an exceptional experience in this domain, will also be along with us. So I'm not wasting much of the time. I'm really glad that TCS, DRJ Telecom, as well as Mr. Binto Kurien also will be joining on tomorrow, particularly on the blockchain aspects also. So once again, thank you all for joining, and over to Mindu Thomas for further introducing our keynote speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we have the second day keynote speaker, Ms. Jyothi Ramaswamy. She brings with her more than 22 years of IT experience, primarily in information security management space. She started her career as a trainer, moved to information security manager role, and over the years worked in various business units of TCS. She has conducted various international security audits and leading security incident investigations. She has strong knowledge of cyber information security concept, risk and control concept, and is proficient in design and implementation of information security management. Over to you, madam.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thanks to the other professors who invited and welcomed. I hope I'm audible, right?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm very glad to be here presenting the topic, which is very close to my heart. I am a security person by competency and also by nature nowadays. My daughter says that if she comes and asks me something, I always think twice. And she tells me, it is not a change request that your team member has raised, Amma. I am asking you something. Why are you thinking so much before you agree to it, or you are saying, no, it is not possible? So it is like being in the security and compliance domain has made me wear that hat in all walks of my life. So I have become sort of a compliance person all through. So I will just tell you about, I'll try to explain the importance of compliance and governance in cybersecurity, right? So I'm just going ahead. I've taken some diagrams just to explain the current scenario, global security landscape, so that we will be able to understand the importance of cybersecurity. It was mentioned earlier in the introduction speech, security is not a problem creating scenario now. It is a requirement. It is a very important requirement before anybody thinks of putting their server into network, connecting to network, logging in, creating a login, creating a user, right? Trying to log in into the cloud, or trying to download an app in the mobile. Nowadays, all the business organizations are providing us with mobile apps, making it easy for us to do transactions, do day-to-day transactions, right? So in the landscape of a business, we have connected systems. We have servers sitting across the globe, and we have users connecting from across the globe at all the times, 24/7, and from various devices. It can be Windows device, it can be an Apple device, it can be an Android device. They will be connecting to that systems through various interfaces, right? Evolving techniques and technologies. That's what, again, we were saying, that it is suddenly Android will come out with a new flavor of Android. So how does a bank application which has a mobile app convert itself to accept or to allow that new version, new flavor of Android also? So you have to be agile, you have to be quick to make all those changes in a secured manner. By making that change, you cannot say that I am allowing this, but then your login may become clear text. So you are creating a risk along with it. We cannot do that. So we have to ensure we are doing it through secured mechanisms, right? So there is a secured security encryption or secured connectivity also as part of this landscape. And adapting platforms, again, that's what I was telling you with the example of a Android version or a iOS version or even a Windows version, right? So we have to ensure we are able to provide protection from the latest threats, protection to our most critical data, right? See, initially when we thought of data, there was no mechanism of classifying data into critical, highly secure, confidential, private, personal, personal health, personally identifiable, personal health information like that. But now each of the data that is stored or that is transacted or that is processed has to be properly classified to ensure the required security to provide the necessary confidentiality, integrity, and availability to the users who are going to access that data, right? Access to the right skill sets, who are going to access it. Adapting to changing platforms, that's what we were talking about. Operating at appropriate maturity levels for our industry. Each of the business industry has its own maturity level. Like for example, telecom has got TL 9000 as the maturity level. Pharma has got an ISO standard which it has to adapt to, right? And ISO 9000 is a quality level. CMMI is a ISC square. These are all the maturity levels that is required for various industries. Communication of risk clearly to all stakeholders. We have to communicate the risk to the relevant stakeholders. See, when I am creating a new login in a web application, the web application will give me terms and agreements, right? Terms and conditions. I will have to go through that, understand the risk that I am creating by creating a login for myself in that application. See, I have worked for a small project. I have had the opportunity to interact with the Department of Defense in the Department of Space, not Defense, Department of Space. There I saw that they have, for most of the people who are in the research and development wing, they have two different networks. They have intranet and internet clearly separated, right? In IT organizations like ours, we have firewalls which separate intranet and internet. So if you have to connect to internet, you go through a firewall which prevents certain type of connections, which allows only certain type of connections. But areas where the data sensitivity is very high, they don't even allow that. They say, if you have to connect to intranet, use this port and use this machine. If you have to connect to internet, you should have clearance for connecting to internet, and you should be using that particular kiosk, or those ports are connected to internet and you can connect only from there, right? So that has to be communicated to everybody. I should know what I am eligible for, what I can connect to, what type of information I can access to, etc. Right? By doing all these things, organizations, institutions are trying to maximize the value of security. It's an investment, right? How do we get the maximum of security investment? By having the relevant processes around to get the maximum value of security investment. So we have to have the necessary governance mechanisms, the necessary compliance mechanisms around the security controls. Like we have a firewall, doesn't mean we are secure, right? We have an intrusion prevention system, so it doesn't mean we are secure. We have to ensure that the intrusion prevention system controls everything at the perimeter which has connectivity to internet. In the firewall, we should have firewall rule base which allows certain connectivity from one side of the firewall to the other and blocks certain kind of connectivity, because the risk of that connectivity is not acceptable by the organization. So that is what we have to do in the current connected scenario, connected landscape of any business. this is again one diagram which I found that this is very good for explaining what I want to explain about the connectivity. So I have copied it from the paper which I have seen in internet. See, this is a typical enterprise application, right? We have a marketing department, we have an HR department, we have a finance department, and we have a firewall which connects the various devices like mobiles, IP phones, laptops, VPN connector, and we have all the switches, and then the whole thing goes into the servers. It may be in on-premises servers like we have currently in our data centers, or it may be cloud servers also, right? So connectivity is at every stage. From two devices there is connectivity. So how do we ensure secure connectivity to get the required dimensions of security called confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? So we have to see how each of this is done. So setting network itself is a architecture related job. So they have to look at what are the different things that are to be connected, what are going to be the various controls in connecting port related controls, MAC binding the port, or how do we in an IP phone, how do you ensure that that particular port where the phone is connected will allow only voice and it does not allow data, right? So you have to configure each and every instance of connectivity to be secure, so that the business that we are dealing with, the institution that we are managing, is having secure transactions. Now, I'll just read out some of the threat landscapes. What are the cyber security events and costs? Right, cyber threat landscape. 79% of survey respondents in the cyber security survey conducted by US State for Cybercrime Survey said that they have detected at least one security incident in the past 12 months. Average total cost of a data breach increased 23% over the past 2 years. Right, average cost paid for each lost stolen record increased by 6%. And from the industry, data breaches are expected to reach $2.1 trillion globally by 2019. 2019 is over now, right? Now, the data security is the utmost important thing for all businesses, because we have data protection related regulations. We have regulations like GDPR in Europe. We have regulations which are applicable to various geographical locations. So data breaches are going to cost the maximum in today's scenario, because data is the sensitive, most valuable element in any transaction. Here also, the 76% of survey respondents were more concerned about cyber security threats than the previous 12 months, right? And reputational risk, we all know this, right? We have seen about issues where systems were hacked, systems were penetrated into, and data were stolen. So that will be a reputational risk to any organization. An IT security breach can have serious implications in a company. 46% of companies suffered damage to reputation and brand value due to a security breach. 19% suffered a damage to reputation due to a third-party security breach, right? What is a third-party security breach? For example, in the college that is conducting MBITS, suppose you have a system which is managing all the activities of the staff there, the employees of the college. So suppose I have to raise a travel request. The system is connected to a travel agent. The travel agent can connect and then take my travel request and issue tickets to me. So there is a third party access to my IT system, right? That is what the third party access means it is not only the employees of the organization who connect, it is also some other people who connect to the organization's infrastructure for providing services which they are asked to provide. So the risk of losing customer trust is significant, and it is rising for during all these previous years. So this is the threat landscape. So I just wanted to put across the size and the volume of what can happen if something goes wrong. Now, I told in the earlier slide, I was saying that we should have processes around all those appliances, equipments, the connectivity that we have put in our institutional network connectivity, right? What are the different procedures and guidelines? We should have processes around incident management, right? A security incident should be captured and it should be addressed with respect to corrective action and preventive action. Wherever there is a security incident that is identified, we should have corrective action to come out with block whatever was the deviation from process or violation from process. And we should also have preventive action to ensure this is not repeating further, right? There should be vulnerability management. See, each of this, we know, right? We know that our computers, Microsoft comes out with new updates. We know that Google Play Store in mobile comes out with new updates for all the apps. So the updates are because they identify some vulnerability in the existing application, and that vulnerability is being addressed by that update or a patch. So the remediation of the vulnerability is by doing that patch. So, but most of the apps that we are using as end users, these patches are all optional. I can still keep accessing that server even if I don't update my system, right? But wherever the connectivity allows any data processing, here as end user, we are only viewing the data, or we are using it for transferring something or doing communication for the data that we own. See, as a bank app user, right? If I am having a mobile app for my bank account in my phone, I am doing any transaction only in my account, right? But for an IT support guy who is managing the server of that bank, he is managing the different records of different various people. So such things, it will not allow that patching as optional. It has to be mandatory. That is where the vulnerability remediation has to be tracked, and it has to be done in a timely manner, right? Application security management. Now I am developing something, I am doing testing. How do I, during development, how do I capture all the security related requirements? How do I do security testing? How do I do design so that it is secure by default, right? The design has to be secure by default. So how do I do all these things? What are the different types of reviews, testing that are to be done for ensuring application is developed in a secure manner? User access management, a very important mechanism, very important compliance measure whenever we do any audits or reviews or anything, right? When I join a new project, I will request for access, because without access, I will not be able to do any work. So that goes on as per process generally. But when I am moving out of the project, right, I just go. But my access has to be blocked on the same day. So that is one of the very important requirement of anybody who's managing a system is for access provisioning and access revoking in a timely manner, and then doing reconciliation or revalidation of access to critical systems in a periodic manner. Say once a month, once a quarter, you have to verify whether everybody who has access to the system are the people who require access, there is nobody who has moved from one role to another and who doesn't require this access. So this access has to be removed or revoked, right? Now, third-party security. Third-party security is for people who get access to the system. See, for example, maintenance guy, the maintenance of my server, maintenance of my network device, right? So he's coming and connecting to my system. He is logging in into the system to do the maintenance in that system. So how do we ensure that he is not creating any issue, or he is not creating a loophole through which data will be lost or access will create an issue? So we have to ensure that any third party who will have access to the system will sign a non-disclosure agreement. They will have to sign a legal agreement saying that I will do this for the purpose of whatever contract I have signed. I will not use it for any other purpose. Adequate due diligence on vendors. We have to do proper background verification of vendors who have access, right? We know that, right? We deploy facility management people, house cleaning staff. So when they come into the office premises, we should know that they are trustworthy. So most of the organizations employ people who have police clearance certificate, who have proper background verification that is done, and then only they will be employed to do this work. Controlled access management. Physical access to data center or hub room will not be given to them. Network access will not be given if it is not required. Address legal requirements. Suppose there is any legal requirement for providing the access or revoking the access, we have to ensure that is also met. Generally, these legal requirements become very important when mostly outside India, where we have to ensure a person works only for the stipulated time, not beyond that. So the time clocking mechanism ensures that people finish work and move out. And there has to be legal requirement in terms of health safety parameters. There should not be lone working. One person alone should not be working in a place inside a closed room, right? Such legal requirements are there in many places, many countries, many geographies have such legal requirements. Information transmittal through secured channels. How do you transmit information? See, suppose I am couriering a printout, right, from one place to another. How do I ensure that printout cannot be encrypted, right? It can only be sealed. So how do I ensure that it is transmitted through secured channel? And periodic review of all these activities are done for ensuring third-party security. Now, business continuity management. This is, I don't think I have to talk about business continuity management in this COVID era, right? Most of the organizations started by invoking their business continuity plan by asking their staff to work from home. But now that work from home has become the normal scenario. Till this COVID scenario, COVID conditions are better, we are in normal work from home scenario, right? And that is not taken as a business continuity mechanisms. We know that the rains in Chennai, in Mumbai, even the flood in Kerala last year. So all these things have created business continuity or disaster scenario for various organizations where they had to invoke their disaster recovery mechanisms and business continuity plans, right? Having a business continuity plan alone is not sufficient. We have to keep testing it. That is what we do by doing drills. You would have heard about fire drills, right? Evacuation drills. Every building, as per the building code of all the places, all countries, all geographies, we require to do evacuation of the building once a month or once a quarter to ensure if something happens, people know how to go out and assemble in an assembly point, and they capture the time taken for everybody to evacuate the building, right? I was in a customer place earlier in UK. There they have every week on Monday, they have a drill of testing their public address system. So they say this is testing my public address system, right? It's only that 1 second, but they test to see whether that is working. And in case of a disaster scenario, it will take up and it will ensure people will be able to hear that announcement. So business continuity mechanism should be tested periodically by different drills. So we have many more procedures and guidelines. I just took up things which I can explain in this short period, and that is how I have taken these things. Now, in the core security, there are some options which we have to look at. One is identity and access management, right? We all know about this, right? We have the unique identification, the UID, the Aadhaar card, the social security number, the national information, the national insurance number. Different countries have different ways of doing the identity management for people. We have Aadhaar number. We also have PAN number. We have the different access management. So in a network, it is a login ID. How do I track? How can I track, right? There has to be one unique ID, which, I mean, most of you, if you are from computer science background, you will know that it has to be a primary key. It has to be a primary key so that any instance of that will be tagged to this primary key and it will be tracked. There will be a mechanism of creating a trail to see who has done what. So identity and access management helps that. It helps onboarding people. It also helps changing access levels. It helps in offboarding people, right? Data protection and privacy. We talked about it. The most sensitive data in today's scenario is personally identifiable data, personal health information, right? So how do we protect this data? Which field in a particular record has to be encrypted so that data is protected, privacy is maintained, right? So we have to ensure data protection and privacy requirement. Information risk, right? See, most of the laptops and the systems that we use in IT services organizations, we don't have access to USB drives. We don't have access to CD drives. I told you that I don't have access to even the camera in my laptop. So the information risk has to be assessed, and accordingly, the access levels, the privileges, the rights have to be managed accordingly. Now, digital forensics. What do you mean by digital forensics? Ensuring that there is some footprint, digital footprints, so that something in case of any questions or in case of any investigation to be done, we can find out. If somebody has raised a hand, any questions?
Madam, we'll take the questions at the end.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Digital forensics and e-discovery. E-discovery is again ensuring audit trail is maintained. We can have an electronic discovery of any new devices that has been added to the network, right? Again, I told you about segregating of intranet and internet. I was also working in a US-based financial organization. There, when I went to their office, they have two levels of Wi-Fi's. One Wi-Fi is guest Wi-Fi. So that is for just guests for the internet connectivity. That allows only internet connectivity. But even then, they discover who all have come and connected to that, who used it for what. So there is also some tracking mechanisms available. Who has connected? So depending on what is our business requirement, what is the sensitivity of information that we manage, we have to put in measures to do the e-discovery, to do the digital forensics, etc. Big data security. Big data is a one-day seminar topic itself, so I will not be able to talk about big data at this point in time. But then, you know, data mining, data using data, what Google does, you know, right? The moment we start typing something, there is a type ahead always. It says that this is what it is. In Amazon, I go and search for something, I want to buy that, I put it in the cart. It says that people who bought this earlier bought this along with something else. Do you want that? Right? How do they do that? They do data analysis, they do data management by having all this information. So when we do anything in internet, we have to understand that we are leaving our footprints in all places, right? There is always a trail of what we have done. When did I log in into Amazon? What all I checked, right? In 2 days, Amazon will send me an email saying that you have kept things in your cart. Why are you not buying it? Right? Flipkart may say that the sale is getting over in 2 minutes. You have to buy it in 2 minutes, right? So all this data is there. So how do we secure the data that is getting stored? So all this organizations like Amazon, Facebook, Flipkart, how do they manage their customer privileges, the customer's interests, the customer's data, right? That all comes under the under some part of this big data security. Security Operations Center. Security Operations Center is where we monitor. People keep monitoring to see if somebody is hacking into the system, right? Somebody is entering, there is some alerts. Systems generate alerts in case of any unwanted events or unaccepted events. So at that alert, the operations center come out with their reactions, their responses. Sometimes they have to block certain things when an alert comes. Sometimes they have to report that alert. Sometimes they have to create an alarm in an alert. So that is what the Security Operations Center does. Information security policy. Like earlier slide also, we were talking about how we should have relevant policies and procedures around the equipments, the appliances that we have to ensure security, right? Information assurance. How do you assure integrity of information, confidentiality of information, right? When I started with my cyber security journey, in the first set of training sessions that I attended, somebody told me the most secure data is the one where you put the data in a CPU and then put the CPU in a locker and lock it, right? But that is that the way we have to use information? If we have information, that has to be shared across, that has to be used by multiple stakeholders, then only the information will have value. You cannot lock some information inside and then make it safe. So confidentiality alone is not sufficient. Availability also is required. Making the right information available to the right people for the right action is what security has to look for. Risk assessment. Again, one small example which I always quote in my sessions is, when I leave my pen on table, I know a pen can be left on table, but if I have my gold bangle, I don't leave it on table. I always keep it inside the table, right? So I should know to do a risk assessment and provide the necessary security controls like encryption, like access provisioning, like segregation of networks through firewall, everything after doing the necessary risk assessment. Security architecture. So design, in the design of the application, how do I bring security in? So do the proper architecture. Incident response. while identifying a incident, what is going to be the response mechanism? How quickly you want the system to respond, right? Penetration testing. What is the mechanism of testing whether at the perimeter level, whether my network is safe or not, right? I ask security teams to do a penetration testing using some tools to find out if some ports are open, if some systems are having normal HTTP protocol instead of secured HTTP, right? By doing penetration testing, I will be able to find out all those things. I will also be able to find out if the database that I am using is secure or not. Security leadership, right? Any of this ISO standards or ISO certifications, what they say is there has to be management commitment. Only then we will be able to ensure that we have the necessary controls that can be implemented, right? It is good to have a mechanism of, I told you that my laptop doesn't have USB connection. Suppose my organization says that if I want USB connection, I can raise a request and get that done just by myself, right? If that is the case, then everyone will ask for the USB connectivity. Whether I use it or not, I will also ask for it, right? But if there is a mechanism of a change request, getting that properly approved, getting that calculated as a risk in the risk repository, right? And then highlighting the risk to the leadership as a practice, then only it will stop at that point, and then only people who definitely require access for a business purpose will ask access. Cyber threat intelligence. There are many tools which will be able to provide the intelligence, right? We will be able to know that this particular system has this vulnerability. So the threat intelligence tools are tools which tell us that by having this version of, say, .NET, we have a version of .NET in the server. By having this version of .NET, we are holding a risk of this particular vulnerability, right? So once any issue is identified, what is going to be the investigation? That is a cyber investigation. So these are the various domains. I should have named it as domains and not options. So these are the various domains that come as important in the cyber security for us to ensure we have the necessary governance mechanism and the compliance mechanisms in place, right? Because my topic today is about governance, risk, and compliance, I thought I'll put across the various areas which we have to look at, or we have to that has to be highlighted for us to create proper governance mechanisms around it. Now, we are coming to the GRC, or Governance, Risk and Compliance Framework, right? The GRC framework is a structure that an institution uses for governance, risk and compliance initiatives. It means establishing governance, identifying and assessing risk, and achieving compliance, right? Establishing governance, what does that mean? There has to be some status reports. It should have some review mechanisms. It should have some mechanism of tracking any gaps, right? Gaps should be identified. Gaps should be tracked to closure. That is what this governance mechanism says. So for governance, we should have some benchmark, right? So we use benchmarks like ISO, COBIT. We have various frameworks which provide the necessary benchmarks for establishing governance, right? And we should identify and assess the risk. For our business, what are the risks? We have to identify them. We have to quantify the risk. There is no meaning in just identifying the risk. We have to quantify the risk, and then that risk has to be addressed, right? There are different ways of addressing risk. One is accepting the risk. The other is mitigating the risk. The third is transferring the risk, So we will look at it as the slides go. And achieving compliance. Now, what do you mean by compliance? Ensuring we are going as per the guidelines, checklist, procedure, right? So audits or reviews happen to measure compliance. So we have to see whether there is any non-conformance to the processes, or we are conforming to the process and we are compliant to the process, right? So the GRC framework is an integrated collaborative approach for producing desired results. See, the business owner, for example, in a branch of a bank, right? The bank manager is the owner of the bank, but then the compliance of the bank's process is also managed by the IT manager who manages all their servers, the HR manager who ensures that people who are recruiting have got proper background checks done, right? The admin manager who ensures that there are CCTVs put at the necessary places. So it is a collaborative approach. It's a collaborative approach of various departments who join hands and come out with the process of getting a compliant system, a compliant system which provides us the maximum benefit, the maximum business value, right? And enterprise risk management. The risk management framework is a method for minimizing unexpected volatility through the assessment of risk across every function. So it is like we identify the risk and we address the risk, right? Now, one of the example that we always look at, I always quote one advertisements which I have seen for life insurance. You also would have seen, or maybe it is very old, the students here wouldn't have seen this, because I was talking about something which I've seen long time back. But still, there is one person is walking across the different boards, the wooden boards. He says, I do not need insurance, right? He steps on each of the board, and when he steps on that knot, the board breaks and he falls down. So it says, I do need insurance. It becomes like that. So it is something where we have to evaluate the risk at each step, right? And then we have to take the necessary steps. For example, when I have a new car that I am having, the insurance premium for the car will be high. Along with the age of the car, the premium reduces, right? Because the damage that can happen, or the correction for the damage will be less costly when the car is becoming older, right? That is the value of evaluating, identifying and evaluating risk and developing mitigation strategies. This shares the same goals as GRC, continued achievement of the institution's goals and objectives. The IT risk management focuses not only on the risk related to the IT department, but on all IT-enabled risks to an organization. That is what I was telling you, that the cyber risk management does not mean that it looks only into the IT department. It also looks into, see, for example, in the legal system, suppose a theft happened in an office, right? We have a CCTV mechanism. There is a recording from CCTV about that theft. That recording is taken to the court. And if the court finds that the time recorded in that CCTV system and the actual time is not same, or rather the CCTV system did not have a time syncing mechanism, then the court can decide not to use that evidence, right? So the risk has to be addressed at all IT enabled area. So if we have a CCTV system, we have to ensure that the system has a time sync mechanism with the network that we are using, right? Now, even in our mobiles, we have to sync the mobile clock with the service provider. Then only if we take a record of anything, that will have a legal value only if the time is in sync with the service provider time or the geography time or the actual correct time, whichever it has to be managed. So again, in the laptop that I am using, I will not have right to change the time. That will be set by the organization, because the trails of what is happening using that system has to be correct. So they have to ensure that the trails are maintained correctly, and that is how the time sync is an important factor, right? So this is risk management framework. Now governance alone, we are looking at governance in answering 4 different questions. Are we doing the right things? Are we doing the correct things? Are we keeping the CCTV cameras in places where it is required, or it is kept at places which is not going to help us? As an example, are we doing them the right way? By putting the CCTV, I'm just taking that as an example. By putting the CCTV camera, am I ensuring there is enough light for the CCTV camera to capture what has to be captured? It is pointed to the right place so that it captures whatever is the most valuable transaction. Are we getting them done well? Right? Are we having proper backup of that recording, and it is kept in the backup for the necessary time? Right? Are we getting the benefits? Now we have to capture all these things. Suppose I have a process in which my CCTV recordings have to be kept for 2 years. Now I have to see in the last 5 years, how many instances I had any need for a CCTV recording which was more than 1 month old. If I did not have any requirement, then why am I wasting the space by keeping the recording for 2 years? I can make it into 3 months, right? So that is what we have to do by looking at whether we are getting the right benefits. Now, governance is again applicable to all departments for financial accountability and oversight. In this, again, I will give you an example which was asked to me when I was doing an audit in a place. I was asked this question. They asked me, what is the anti-fraud mechanism that you are having, right? Or rather, they explained to me what is the anti-fraud mechanism that they are having in their financial organization. They have a mechanism in which they ask anybody who has a power to approve some financial transaction above a certain amount to go on a forced leave in every year for 15 to 20 days, right? So that 15 to 20 days, they have to hand over their responsibility to somebody else. So that somebody else will be able to find out if there is any fraud happening or if there is anything that is missing there, right? So we have to ensure governance is put in all the departments for financial accountability, for operational effectiveness. We have to see whether we are capturing all this benefits of all the processes that we are putting in, whether we are doing it in an optimized way, right? Legal and human resources compliance, again, contractual compliance, labor law related compliance, legal compliance in terms of health and safety measures, social responsibility, IT investment operations and control, right? That is, this IT investment is something which is making organizations look for cloud supports nowadays. They are finding out that having a in-house, on-premises server is actually more expensive than utilizing a cloud services. So they are coming out with processes to have cloud support, software as a service, infrastructure as a service. The process of risk management provides information that allows management to correctly understand risk and address the circumstances requiring risk mitigation, right? So all this governance mechanism is to help the management to decide what are the different mitigation mechanisms that has to be implemented. Are we over engineering it? Any business organization always looks at optimizing. So they always question in between to see whether they are over engineering. Are we spending more than what is actually required in a particular area, right? For example, I require security guards. So do I require 2 people or 5 people or 10 people? How do I decide? So I have to decide what are the areas where I need somebody to monitor the activities. And then I have to decide how many security guards I should have, right? So, are we over engineering? Are we overspending? Is something again which we have to look at. So governance mechanism helps us to do all these things. Again, enterprise risk management in a quick this thing. We have already talked about it. Risk is something that impacts the organization's ability to meet its objective, right? And enterprise risk management is a leadership-driven initiative. Any initiative for that matter in cybersecurity or in any quality level is something which requires leadership-driven activities. There has to be blessing from leadership. Then only the budget will be approved. Then only approvals will be obtained for people to be included, right? It is a process initiated and effected by organizations' leadership, developed and managed at the enterprise as opposed to the unit or at operation level. Like earlier I told you about a bank branch. Something which a branch does is not an enterprise management. The enterprise management is something which is done at a head office level and which is cascaded to the branches, right? Provides a framework for determining the risk tolerance and mitigating strategies and allocating resources. That's what I told you. Unless we have the leadership blessing, we will not be able to allocate the necessary resources. Suppose I should have 5 security guards. I need to get approval for paying 5 people, right? It is not 5 people. 5 people, 3 shifts, or 2 people, 3 shifts, and 3 people, 2 shifts, something like that. So there has to be a mechanism of ensuring that the required resources are approved. Now the risk management, I'll just go into the risk management. Am I going okay with the speed, or what is the time that is available for me now?
Yeah, it's perfectly fine, and you are the only speaker. And including the question answers, we can go up to 7:30, but that's the maximum limit. But
no, I will not go till 7:30.
Yeah, I'm sure that no problem, because based on the questions, Vaman sir, yourself, as well as even Binto George is also there. We'll take up the questions also. The speed, I believe that it is perfectly all right, madam.
Thank you. Okay, so the risk management is where we have to identify the risk, and the identification, we have to facilitate assessment, and then we have to support the mitigation, and then we should have reporting and monitoring mechanism, right? From the reporting and monitoring mechanism, we will be able to identify more risk if there are any, right? So this is a cyclic process. Anywhere the risk has to be first identified, then it has to be assessed into whether it is a low risk or a medium risk or a high risk or a critical risk. Accordingly, the mitigation has to be planned, and then it goes into the control mechanisms. I'll give you a small example before we go ahead with it. My brother actually donated something of value to a temple nearby. It is called Nelayangi. I don't know how to say that in English, but then he donated something in silver to a temple nearby. So the temple had a problem. They said, okay, we can take it because you are donating it. You are having a prayer. That is why you are giving. So they took it, but they said, you have to buy me a locker also so that I can keep it. Right. So that is the way the risk identification and assessment and mitigation has to happen. So yeah, I just wanted to tell you how to identify. Again, the new car, old car example is also for that, right? When I take insurance for my car, I can take comprehensive insurance or a third party insurance. If it is a third party insurance, only the third party will get any benefit if there is a accident by that vehicle. If I take a comprehensive insurance only, I will also get benefit, right? So for every walk of our life, we do this risk identification, assessment and mitigation ourselves, knowingly or unknowingly. Many a time it would have become a practice, a habit to us, that we will not identify that we are doing this, right? In the risk management, we have to assess the risk by evaluating the intent and capability of the threats. Again, as I told you, the threat of theft, the theft of man in the middle act, the threat of hacking into the system, the threat of somebody stealing information, right? For a college, I'm talking in a college. So when I talk about the academic institution perspective, right? The server in which all the exam question papers are stored is the most valuable thing in the college till the questions are printed and given out to the people. So the risk is driven by the scope and time. Something which is most valuable at this moment will become less valuable as time goes, right? Again, for an organization, for an institution which has which is listed in the share market, right? Just the day before the quarterly result is announced, that result is secret, confidential, secure. Once that is announced, then it becomes public, right? So the risk management has to be a continuous exercise. It should not be an exercise done once in a lifetime. It should be a continuous exercise. It has to, considering the respective relationship of vulnerabilities that the threat could exploit to intercept, interrupt or modify data in information assets, right? So the risk management has to be a continuous exercise. The risk management program should be comprehensive, complete, auditable. That means it has to be reviewable by an independent third party. That is where most of the organizations go for ISO certifications. We ask the organizations which do audit to come and audit us and give us a certificate saying ISO 9000 compliant, ISO 27001 compliant, right? ISO 31000 compliant. ISO 31000 is risk management certification, right? So we should have a process which should document what we do, and all the activities in the organization should have been done only as per the documented process. That is what the audit will verify. Justifiable, that means there has to be some reason in doing that. Legal, in compliance with regulations, whatever is the geographic regulations. See, the first thing that any organization has to follow is the law of the land, right? Law of the land has to be complied with, then only you can have any additional processes or additional controls that need to be put in place. The risk management program should also be monitored, right? Enforced, up to date and managed. We talked about all the steps in different scenarios. It should be up to date. It should be current with changing business processes, technologies and laws, right? For example, now a jewelry had a risk management program process for managing its jewels. Suddenly the jewelry expanded into real estate also. So when it expands to real estate, its risk management process should encompass that business activity also, right? That is what it says, changing with current with changing business process, technologies and laws. The jewelry was having only walk-in sales, right? Then they moved into online sales also. That is the change in technology. So they will have to do a risk assessment based on that as well, right? Managed. How do you ensure this is reviewed, this is monitored, this is looked for governance mechanisms, right? Necessary resources are there, support is there, etc. The different risk types that are there are, the IT risk has strategic risk. That's what, again, with respect to that jewelry. When I have a strategy, business strategy of expanding my business, what is going to be the risk by changing my strategy? Environmental risk. See, I am using an environment where I am allowing only the office desktops to connect to the network. Suddenly there is a requirement for laptops to be added, where laptops can be taken out of the office by the employees, right? There is also BYOD, bring your own device. Suppose the organization allows BYOD, what is going to be the environmental risk? Market risk. Now, by doing this, what am I doing in my business market for my credit worthiness, right? By bringing in, by doing this expansion, am I making my organization take more credit risk, or am I making it more credit worthy, right? Operational risk. Now, by having, suppose I am expanding my operations from India into say Singapore or Philippines, right? Or some other country. So how do I manage the operational risk? By bringing another geographic location that can also be addressed in strategic risk. It can also be addressed in environmental risk and in operational risk, right? And compliance risk. Now I am doing business in telecom area. So my compliance requirement is as per TRAI, right? Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. Suppose I am expanding my business into another area also. So what is the compliance risk that comes along with my expanding of business? So these are the various enterprise risks that we have to look at and calculate all these things and assess all these things and then manage these things, right? Now, I just wanted to touch base on, the COBIT model. COBIT is one model which is a enterprise risk management and governance management model. It has 5 different principles. So I'm just showing this. I'll just explain some of this, may not go into the complete principles of COBIT. We have the first one is meeting stakeholders' needs, right? What are the stakeholders' needs? What are the different businesses that are there? What are the different stakeholders, like shareholders, right? Like the board of directors, like sister concerns, like the employees, like the auditing firms, like the third party things. So we have to define the responsibilities and goals of each of this role and then cascade it to that level. See, as an employee of TCS, what am I expected to do? What am I expected not to do? Right? That has to be very clearly communicated, right? And the second one is covering enterprise end to end. How do we have governance mechanism scoped in to include all the activities? For example, I'll give you another example. In a hotel, in a 5-star hotel, they have this mechanism of scanning everyone who goes in, their bags and all these things, right? But imagine a scenario where they have an entry, a service entry for the truck, which brings in all the food articles or the provisions and all those things, right? If they are not securing that particular area, will keeping the main entry of guest and staff help in securing the whole organization? No, right? So we have to understand end-to-end enterprise requirement, and in physical security we have to understand what are going to be our points of entry and points of exit, and we have to cover it. Similarly, in each of the areas, we have to ensure we have governance enablers, we have identified the scope, and then we are covering all the roles and activities and the relationship, right? Then third one is applying a single integrated framework, ensuring we have a single framework to address all the governance and risk management mechanism, right? We shouldn't be having, departments should not work in silos. They should work together. They should not be working in silos. That is what it means by having an integrated framework. Enabling a holistic approach. There should be performance management. There should be a holistic approach, means there should be a view of all the businesses that institution is doing, all the interfaces that institution is having with third parties, with regulators, with the different geographies where they exist, etc. Then only we will be able to have interconnections. We can have the various key KPIs, key performance indicators, etc. Separating management from governance, right? These two are two different terms. Generally, we have a feeling that my supervisor is the person who governs me. No, that is not correct. Supervisor is a manager. Governance mechanism is to see that the supervisor does his work properly, I do my work properly, and together we work as a team to meet the organization's requirement. So how do we separate management and governance, and how do you manage both? How do you ensure there is peer review? That is why most of the benchmark standards say that, okay, you do review, I understand, but what is a peer review, or what is an external review, or what is an external audit? How do you bring in an audit to ensure a governance mechanism, right? So these are the 5 different principles of COBIT, which will ensure that we are addressing the governance and compliance requirement in all the areas to address the risk to the organization. This is the typical list of cyber security controls. This is taken from Center for Internet Security. I felt that this is a good set which I can showcase here. That's why I've taken it here. Inventory and control of hardware and software assets. Very important. We should know what is the devices. It should have an asset number, right? The devices. We should have a IT service management tool which says these are the different devices that are in the network. Only those devices should be connectable to the network, right? Even software asset. I shouldn't be given permission to download and install a software. The software asset has to be maintained and it has to be verified in between. That asset inventory has to be verified. Vulnerability management, we already saw that. There has to be vulnerability verification and remediations, continuous mechanisms. Controlled use of administrative privileges. Administrative privileges should not be given to everybody. It should be given to only roles which require that administrative privilege. Secure configuration of hardware and software on devices, servers, and mobiles. How do we secure? MDM, you have heard about MDM. Now we have a facility to connect our mobiles to the office infrastructure like chat mechanisms, instant messaging and all, right? So to add my mobile, I should allow a mobile deployment mechanism to be installed into my system. Then only I will be able to do it. So how do we securely configure? Now that secure configuration should allow me to wipe out any data remotely also. Suppose I lose my mobile. I have my organization email logged into my mobile and I lose my mobile. So I should be able to raise a ticket in my organization's infrastructure to wipe my mobile remotely so that the device, the data that is there in the device will not go to, will not be misused, right? In my laptop, suppose I lose my laptop, I should have a disk encryption software in my laptop so that even if I lose my laptop, the data is not misusable, right? Maintenance and monitoring and analysis of audit logs, email and web browser protection, malware defenses, right? How do I configure my antivirus? How do I ensure I am not allowing any ransomware attack, right? Limitation and control of network ports, protocols, and services. Data recovery capabilities, right? What is my backup mechanism? How do I ensure I have a data recovery capability, right? Secure configuration of network devices like firewalls, routers, etc. Boundary defense. What is my boundary defense? Am I doing a penetration testing to see whether my boundary is secure or not? Data protection. How do I classify my data and provide the necessary additional controls to sensitive data? Controlled access based on the need to know access management, right? Wireless access control. How do I ensure any device, any unidentified device is not connecting to my system, right? How do I ensure wireless points are also hardened? Account monitoring and control. What is the way of monitoring what each account team is doing at any time? How long will I keep that logs? Implement an awareness and training program. How do I let people know what they are supposed to know, what they should be doing, what they should not be doing, right? Application software security, incident response, penetration test, and red team exercises. Have you heard about red team exercises? This red team exercises are things where organizations call teams to come, and then like in Technopark in Trivandrum, we have an exercise done once a year where teams enter into Technopark, bypassing the security at the entrance points. So that is called red team exercise. They just try to penetrate, right? They just try to do it. It is like ethical hacking. Ethical hacking in systems, we do that physically also, right? Suppose I go to an office door and I tell them, sorry, I forgot my card today. Will you open the door for me? If the security guard opens the door, then that means that is a process deviation. It is a violation, right? So people do such exercises to ensure, to find out what are the risks that they are having in their organization setup, in their controls. So I think with this, I am completing my session. So,
Madam, it was really an amazing sessions. And starting from the last point which you said about the penetration once in a while which you are doing. As also I was working in industry where I found once that our CEO himself has penetrated the security and he entered into the control room and he was about to walk out into the plant without taking the precautions. And that time, fortunately, the people who are on duty were trying to prevent, but again, he was trying to say some excuses, and also he was in the dress of a normal Arabic person. So he tried to walk in, but they did not allow. So that was one exercise which I'm just quoting from the last point which you said. And again, coming from the beginning, madam, it's really an amazing section because basically the cybersecurity is a UG program, it's a PG program. And again, the areas which you covered from the starting from the beginning till end, it's really an amazing. And I would believe that this will stay as a very landmark for the future generations whenever they are talking about this one. And again, somebody started asking, this recorded videos will be live immediately after this webinar. And again, it will be sent for all the people who was registered. And again, it will be available in the YouTube channel also. And again, all the examples which you said about so really relevant and how complex. And always you try to explain with a lot of examples in the cyber systems, the regular normal scenarios and all. It's really amazing. And I think I need not explain anything more because the live recorded videos will be available. And now, thank you very much on behalf of all the participants over here, madam. And it's really a wonderful presentation.
Thank you,
And
sir.
again, now our two more key speakers, Dr. D.R. Vaman sir is also present here. And also who is handling for tomorrow, Mr. Binto Kurien is also joined with this session since the beginning also. So let me go to Dr. Vaman sir. If you have any observations or anything, which you can brief maybe about 3-4 minutes, so that that again you are talking on any subject whichever you like. I know that. So maybe 3 to 5 minutes you can speak on this topic. Meanwhile, I request all the audience also to have any questions to the chat box, so that the whole team of panel members will be started answering your question. Over to Dr. Vaman sir for your observations or comments on the topics. Maybe you can take 3 to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, let me change somewhat. I actually ran 2 companies. One is an international company.
And madam, maybe you can close this your presentation so that now, unless it's required. Thank you.
So we had operations in Germany, Sweden, Stockholm, and London, and Washington D.C. So it was about 800 people we were there in the company, and I was the CEO. And this particular aspect is very, very crucial for making sure that everywhere the process is secure. In fact, we used to make mixed signal chipsets in Germany and manufacturing that there. And the technology was very unique. And so we had to protect it with utmost care. And we still had to access from everywhere to discuss system development and the chip development in all 4 societies. And some marketing people also used to participate. So access to some of the servers is a very interesting thing from a remote side. In those days, we didn't have any methods, but we created our own methods to protect so that somebody else cannot penetrate our design centers. And that is why this particular thing is very useful in the sense that the policies have come, governance is there, and then the engineers have to be trained to adhere to that. And that, so most of them, in which case we still do a lot of, we still hear a lot of thefts. How does it occur? Because somebody is penetrate once. There are many ways people actually penetrate, and you have to be very, very observant. And so that is an interesting, an employee can be a person who can actually do the theft, and if you don't take care of that at a security level, you don't know what's happening. And so most of the thefts occur because of people get paid bribes and lots of things they do to get this guy to give some documentation or a CD. So basically what the speaker said, in fact, you should not have a CD or should not have a USB. All those things are very, very important. In our company, our internet access was very different from our manufacturing and design centers. So nobody could access this one through the internet. And that's what we have done actually. So in fact, many organizations in the United States, for example, Treasury Department, no employee can access the internet from the Treasury. So because of the sensitive nature of financial data, they don't let anybody access, any employee access internet. And then there are other things that are there, even in India I've seen. So if you are going to access a Gmail account, Yahoo account, it is prevented by the companies. So you don't really get access to those kinds of, the emails.
Yeah, it's the same in most of our organizations also. We don't have access to personal email accounts or connections like Facebook, Twitter and all. That's correct,
right.
Sir.
Yeah, in fact, those are the, every step you have to do. And then every employee has to also protect the company. And that philosophy has to be there. And it takes a while for people to, when the first time when you listen to the presentation made, you think it's a voluminous information. It looks good, but then you don't know what to do, right? That's not the way it happens in industry. In an industry, slowly they become, every employee becomes mature to protect the company. That is the major aspect of it. So all your future depends on how good the company is going to be. And that's essentially how people adopt here, actually. And organizations have to have people with a lot of ethics and integrity. And that's what is very important in a secure environment. I actually had a chance to visit Verizon Security Center. We had an open discussion. They gave me about 15 minutes to talk about different types of securities that I'm working on. And they were also working on a lot of, in fact, in this country, the two most important companies that have very, very good security is Verizon and one more, I just don't want to name them. But anyway, this particular company, when I went there, I had to take my passport. Basically, I went there, and once I was inside, they got interested in my topic. So instead of having a 15-minute discussion, it went on 3 hours. And everything was open. And whatever they did and whatever I did, we just exchanged lots of ideas. And when I came out, I didn't talk about it, and they don't talk about it. And so that integrity has to be there. If you don't have any integrity, just because I'm telling something and you are going to use it, it's a big problem. They don't do that. So that particular type of integrity has to be developed from either the human groups or human resources group or somebody to teach every employee. And that's what is required. So I thought it was a very good presentation, by the way. I wanted to know that. Lots of information, and I have seen these things many, many times, because as a CEO, I have to worry about these things.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. And again, as sir also was mentioned, like when I was working in the 90s, we are not allowed to use floppies in the systems. And again, now I also was working in UAE with Adno group of companies. Strictly, all USB ports are disabled. And again, installation of any software is not permitted. And again, as Vaman sir said, all social networks like Facebook or personal account, Yahoo, Gmail, everything was blocked. And again, sending of the mails only through the company email system. So like that, a number of systems and procedures was there. And I think it's a really good example to know more about that. And again, now Binto Kurien is also with us. And again, we know that he's tomorrow's speaker. And maybe 2 minutes, maybe Binto would like to summarize anything on today's. Of course, you'll get more time tomorrow. Yes, he's joining from United States of America, Washington, D.C. Again, another person, along with the Vaman sir, also from Washington, D.C. Good morning, Binto Kurien.
Good morning, Dr. Sojan, sir. Good morning, Dr. Vaman and Jodi ma'am and others. Just a clarification, although I'm in a Washington, D.C. based company, but right now I'm based in Dallas. So I'm 1 hour behind Dr. Vaman, but still morning.
Okay.
But Jodi ma'am, it was a good presentation. And this is a topic very close to my heart as well, because I'm also a GRC professional with some similar certifications to Jodi ma'am. And interestingly, I see more and more adoption of it, especially these days when I'm looking at my daughter's college admission into the US, and she's looking at doing an undergraduate program in computer science. Most of the universities where we are looking at, they have a some kind of a focus area on cybersecurity. So that's interesting that it's actually almost there in the academics at an undergraduate level. Now, starting with some points where Dr. Vaman told about it's everybody's responsibility. When I used to work as a GRC professional, we used to call this as the multiple lines of defense. So we used to have the 3 lines of defense, starting from the employee, and I used to work in bank, right? Starting from the teller at the counter to the back office to the audit. This security and risk management happens at all levels. And usually when I used to get into this compliance and audit kind of things, people always do look at, like Jodi ma'am was giving you a list of controls, right? And usually the first reaction of people is, oh, there are more controls. When you say controls, you're trying to control my work, and you're not giving me the freedom. My productivity will be impacted, right? So the kind of example which we used to say, and I think I've seen this example in other places as well, is Okay, the question that you ask, why do you have brake in a car, right? Most of us drive cars and, there's brake. And usually the first reaction is, yeah, I need a brake in my car so that I can stop. It's a control, right? Yeah, that's right. But when you look at it another way, suppose you did not have, like you start your car in the morning and you realize that, your brakes are not good, the brake has malfunctioned. How will you drive? You will drive very slowly, right? You will not be going fast. But suppose you realize that your brake is good, what you would do? You would actually drive your car faster, right? Why? Because you know that you can afford to take a risk of driving at 70 miles per hour. Right? Why? Because you know you have a control in place, which is your brake, which is a functioning, tested brake, which you're sure of, because you have a control, right? So that when you have controls, you can afford to take a risk. When you say, and in a business perspective, when you can afford to take a risk, and when you can afford to take more risk than your competitors, right? You will usually end up with having more profitability. So of course, there are other schools of thought where they say, let's not have any risk. Let's just take let's not have any controls, but just take simple risk. But when you have controls in place and then you are taking a risk, you usually will have higher productivity and profitability. So yeah, it was a good presentation, and especially on a topic that is, I am also a practitioner on that. So thanks, Jodi ma'am, and thanks, Sojan sir, for having this session as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Binto Kurien. And it's again wonderful briefing. And over to Mintu for some questions. Yeah.
Can I say
yes,
one? Can I
sir.
make one more statement?
Yes,
In
sir.
fact, when I travel to different countries, in certain countries I don't take my laptop. I only take basically a memory stick, and with a presentation that I have, and then at the end of the presentation I'll just drop it on the floor and just kill it and walk away. So basically, because if you have a working memory stick, they can actually put something else and put it in your laptop. So I don't want to bring it back. So every time I go to some countries, that's what I do. That's the best security you have. Actually. That's all I want to tell you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that point. Thank you, Vaman sir.
Okay,
yes, Mintu, go ahead. Who is handling the
thanks.
questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I am handovering this section to Ms. Tina Saria. Over to you, ma'am. Tina Saria.
Thank you, Binto. So good evening, everyone. So now it's time for shooting the questions. So all of you can post the questions in the chat box. And ma'am, there is one question for you. Okay. Even though we are having lots of techniques like encryption, digital signature, VPN, etc., lots of intrusions are happening. Are you thinking that security experts run faster than intruders? Why security experts didn't think like intruders, and how can we solve these issues?
Yeah, it's a good question. To answer that question, what I have is again a saying, right? To catch a culprit, the police has to think that everyone is a culprit. Then only they will be able to catch. And the police has to win in every instance of a wrongdoing by a culprit. But the culprit has to win only once. So if you are really a hacker or a person who has to create a problem, you will be looking for a loophole. You will be continuously trying to look for a loophole in the system to utilize that loophole, right? As a security engineer, it is our job. That's what I was saying, that things have to be continuous on an ongoing way. Risk assessment has to be ongoing. Vulnerability management has to be ongoing. Antivirus has to be ongoing. Every day it has to happen. But what will happen is, suppose I am working and I am not restarting my system a day. I'm giving an example again. Okay, I'm not restarting my system for 3 days. Then my antivirus update or the patch update, which is asking my system to restart, it has not come into effect. So such things will become a loophole in the whole network, and people with the right tools and the right way of breaking algorithms, they will be able to find it. That's how they are winning. See, if they are not winning, then this will be like the whole world will be like a place where there is no mistake, there is no wrongdoing, right? It's not like that. We have mechanisms in place, we have rules in place, we have procedures in place. But there are certain things which are creating loopholes in the system that are being utilized by the people at the right time. That is how it is becoming a issue. I think that is it from my side, and I hope I have answered that question.
Yeah. Next question, please.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Next question. Which are the familiar courses or university in security where students can do?
Security, I showed that I have explained that this many domains are there in security, right? So there are different courses in different universities. Some are into the core, like from electronics, they go into encryption mechanisms, algorithm. So that is also cybersecurity. Some are where it is like a business administration, MBA cybersecurity, right? Some are where it is risk management. Some are where it is like auditing courses. So depending on, or some are where you go for ethical hacking, you go for penetration testing. So depending on the domain that we are interested in, we have to look for the courses. There is nothing which is a generic answer to this. We have to look through the brochures, look through the syllabus, and then decide which is the course that we have to take up.
Okay, ma'am, thank you. There's one question from Satyaki Banerjee. Why do we use Linux OS for cybersecurity and ethical hacking platforms?
Okay, Linux is, maybe I will ask the other.
I think Vaman sir wants to answer.
No,
Yeah,
I was asking her this question was referring to whom? Who is somebody's asking to whom? Me or?
No, sir. Any one of you can answer. Whoever is comfortable, no problem. Vaman sir, if you wish.
So one of the things, the many development in products, they use Linux because it's an open system, but there are some you have to take a lot of care when you use Linux systems. And the reason people actually use that is everybody puts their programs for coding on the Linux, and sometimes they don't work, and you don't know that. So you have to fix those things. But whenever you fix it, you have to put it back again in the Linux system, so other people can take a look at that. So this particular problem is causing great difficulty. The amount of time it takes to develop a product is much more over a period of time when you have to keep fixing something else. So you just need to know that Linux, even though it is very, very available flexibly to develop that, sometimes it is not a good idea to use Linux.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Tina, next.
Okay, ma'am, there's one more question. Ma'am, there have been various incidents of branch all around the world. One of the sites to which I have logged in even faced such a security breach. So, do you have any suggestions to save our data in case of such breach?
Can you repeat? Sorry, I didn't
Okay, ma'am.
get you.
There have been various incidents of branch all around the world. One of the sites to which I have logged in have even faced such a security breach. So, do you have any suggestions to save our data in case of such a breach?
No. I don't think I will be, see what type, I will ask you 20 questions. Then only I'll be able to answer them. What type of data? Who owns the data? How long you have to store? How quickly, how frequently you have to restore? Right? Who is going to be given access in addition to you? So there are so many questions that has to be asked before giving a prescriptive answer. There is no prescriptive answer in cybersecurity. Please understand that. There is nothing which says this is good, this is the right way. Hope I have answered.
Yeah, go ahead, Tina.
Okay, sir. These all are the different questions which you asked.
Okay, any other general conclusion if anyone wish to make, or if anybody wants to ask direct questions, you can come online by raising the hands. And let us go around the table for your final remarks before we conclude. We also started sharing the feedback link, and also at the same time, any final remarks from Dr. Vaman sir before we conclude. Over to Vaman sir for any concluding remarks, sir.
So anyway, if those of you who attended yesterday's presentation, I actually made a bold statement that the technology threat is much less important than the social cyber threats. And that's essentially what I actually made that comment yesterday. And in fact, people can live with each other in technology and use that, and by exchanging cordially whatever they want to do, instead of actually stealing. Whereas the social networks can create a lot of havoc, and we still don't have solutions to how to protect against the social security threat. It's only beginning, and so it's going to be important. The first problem that occurred is in the United States with the recent elections and all those things. There are a lot of things that are happening here, and people don't know the answers to that. I think you all need to think about it and come up with several dissertations and develop different algorithms, protect it. It's a major, next 10 years, you can produce PhDs, all the professors.
Okay, sir. I think we'll get more PhDs and more papers. That's right. And thank you very much, sir. And before we go to Madam for the final remarks, let me go to Binto Kurien for his concluding remarks. Binto Kurien, please.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Vaman, and it is also related to one of the questions that Jodi ma'am answered. As to, I think the question was related to why even in spite of all such encryption and so much the controls, there are still cases of hackings and cybersecurity incidents. And if you look at the statistics as well, the largest vector is not from outside. It's generally internal threats, internal actors, internal stuff, right? To take another example, which Vaman sir told, it's that staff who picks up the USB from the car parking lot and plugs it into his computer, no controls can prevent that, right? Or the person who opens up his email seems to come from his manager and clicks on a link, right? Or asking, and I'm sure for people in India, I'm sure in the next few days you will start getting emails from Big Basket telling that your IDs have been compromised and please click on this link to reset your ID. And I can guarantee that most of such emails will not be from Big Basket, right? Because that's in the news. All of us are kind of scared. Like yesterday also, my wife was asking, what do we do? Should I do any reset? Hold on, don't worry. There's no credit card information. See your name and phone number and email. So the social engineering aspect, how do we control that? And I think that's the next frontier of cybersecurity landscape. More than the technical controls, it's about how do you ensure the awareness, education, and compliance from a people perspective.
Thank you, Binto Kurien. And now we'll go to Jyothi Ramaswamy Madam for her concluding remarks, before we wind up. Madam Jyothi, please.
Thank you, sir. This was a real nice opportunity for me to come, and I would have liked to be talking to people in person, though I'm an employee of an IT services organization, I always feel comfortable when I am talking to people in person. But this is a good opportunity where I could share my thoughts, or rather not my thoughts, the best practices, the learnings on governance, risk and compliance in the cybersecurity domain. I really enjoyed the session. I hope it was useful and meaningful to all of you who attended. Thank you, sir.
It's really wonderful session. Let me pick the last again. You said the best practices, and we know that the TCS is one of the premier in the world, where we are giving the best services all the time. And I'm really glad that the TCS has nominated you, Jodi Madam, for this one. And we are very fortunate. And thanks to the other team members from the TCS for nominating you, as well as you are being with us. And again, Dr. Vaman sir for being with us, as well as being one of the partners for hosting this international webinar. DRJ Telecom, and Vaman sir is Senior Executive Director. And Binto Kurien also, early morning, you must get up. And again, tomorrow also you'll be here. And again, all the participants, tomorrow we'll see a very exciting presentation on the blockchain. And again, that will be another day for all of us. And again, thank you all the participants. Thank you for Computer Science and Engineering Department. And Mithun sir, head of the department, Tina, Mintu, and Mahesh, and Eldos, Tingu, all of you for this excellent participation and coordination. Thank you very much on behalf of everyone, MBITS, TCS, and DRJ Telecom. Thank you. We are closing down. Grateful for you. Have a good day for all of you. Bye.